What are the funny or interesting stories from your life? You know, the ones that get retold at every family and friends get-together. Welcome to Audiobook Reviews in 5. This is Jana, also known as Jana, and in today's extended episode, I'm sitting down with Paul Gewuerz, the founder of Made to Order Audio. Paul is a professional audiobook narrator and an avid audiobook and podcast fan. Our conversation covers the possibilities and process of creating one-of-a-kind audiobooks to commemorate your stories and memories. And from now until May 15th, you can get $30 off any made-to-order audio by entering my name, that's JANNA, when you place an order with madetoorderaudio.com, which I've also included in the show notes. And now I bring you Paul Gewuerz. Paul, welcome to the podcast. Thanks so much for coming on today.
Thank you for having me. I am excited to be here.
I'm really excited to share more details about Made to Order Audio. You've got an incredibly unique business model and product. I think it's really interesting. There's so many possibilities for custom audio. And I think a lot of people listening to this podcast will immediately understand the value of an audiobook. We all love audiobooks and listening to great narration and voiceover artists. But I'm really curious to hear more about what are some of the other types of custom audio that you would produce for potential customers or people who are interested in gifting maybe an audio podcast or a custom audiobook or an audiogram?
Well, first of all, thank you for the kind words. I appreciate that. So our basic product that we produce at Made to Order Audio, most of the time, we refer to it as a personalized audiobook. Now, it's not exactly an audiobook like that you would go and buy on iTunes or Audible or any platform like that. What we do is we when somebody decides to work with us, we set up a call, kind of a lot like we're doing right now, face to face, usually over Zoom or a phone call. Some people prefer just doing a phone call, and we work with them to learn their story or the story that they want to tell, and turn it into a customized script, which we then narrate with professional narrators into a short story. We primarily do birthday parties, anniversaries, weddings. Mm-hmm. We find that the sweet spot is really just working with small get-togethers of people that know each other really well. It's really, especially when it's a surprise, it's a really fun experience to, have the whole family together. And it's your grandparents' anniversary, let's say.
Yeah.
And everybody's celebrating, eating cake, hanging out around the table. And then we go, hey, everybody, let's come sit down and, set up a Bluetooth speaker or something. And one of our audiobooks will come on. And it always catches people off guard. I really need to get people to start filming and send me some of the reactions because just the ones I've experienced in person are always really great. And then they get to hear their whole story of, everything, say for that anniversary example, mm-hmm. especially like an older anniversary, say a 50th anniversary. It will go way back. What was happening in the world when they first met? How did they meet? What was their first date like? What were their first impressions of each other? Sometimes that's actually really funny.
Oh, tell me some good highlights of that.
Well, there's been times where, especially for the anniversaries or weddings, where the first meeting wasn't always love at first sight. There's been times that people just, I just couldn't stand him. He was so full of himself. Or, it comes across really funny. It sounds, when I say it out loud, it sounds mean, but it's funny.
Oh, absolutely.
Or I did all this stuff to try and get her attention, and finally I got her to notice me, and just rehearing that, and especially the younger generation, children, mm-hmm. stuff like that. It's just fun hearing these kinds of stories. Like grandma and grandpa weren't always old people who were just married forever, Anyway, I'm going down kind of the rabbit hole on that whole anniversary thing. But that's the basic gist of what we do with our custom audio is work with people to learn their stories and bring it into a
celebratory.
Yeah, just bring it
situation.
into a story is the best way to
Yeah.
put it, really. Yeah,
So making people's stories come to life,
exactly.
breathing life into some of those special moments that, to be fair, when people first meet, their entire family doesn't exist yet. So having them share that in a very human and humorous way would be a lot of fun, I can imagine, especially because in larger families or family multi-generational settings, you can imagine little kids don't necessarily think of their grandparents as awkward teenagers going on a date, or people who are parents to be might not imagine what it would have been like for their parents to meet or for their parents to really connect. And I'm also thinking about, with your storytelling examples, would you include male as well as female narrators just to give more personality variation and a dynamic feel to the storytelling?
Absolutely. When we set up the meeting to do the interview to learn people's stories, I always ask if you would you prefer a male narrator, a female narrator? We also work with a few folks who have UK accents, which are actually
Nice.
more popular with American audiences.
No way.
Yeah, I think in the American or Canadian culture, it has a level of sophistication, maybe a
Yes.
posh British accent. I can't really do it well. Sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. You've got a great voice here on your own. So
I
all good.
also have reached out to a few Australians. Also, I know it seems to be a popular accent, I guess you could say. Here in the States, it's from my point of view.
Tell me a little bit, though, about your experience. I know this is taking a little bit of a tangent, but you have voiceover experience. You yourself are an accomplished audiobook reader. People can find your books on Audible. I'm curious as to how you think about voiceover narration. And I'm thinking too about the audience here, because people listening appreciate audiobooks. They often seek out audiobooks specifically for a type of narrator. So tell me a little bit about how you go about finding narrators and choosing the right narrator for a specific story or topic even.
Yeah, sure. So as you said, am a professional audiobook narrator. I focus most of my time on made-to-order audio now, which isn't entirely just narrating other people's books anymore. But through that experience I took vocal training, acting training, things along those lines, and I built up just a pretty good network. It's a pretty inclusive community.
Yeah.
Especially when people are face to face. We like to help each other out, and a lot of times in the standard, if you're auditioning for an audiobook and you don't get it and you're dealing with an author, you may be like, hey, maybe I wasn't right for this role, but let me introduce you to my friend here who I think might be perfect for it. So just long story short, I built up a pretty good network just of people I know pretty well.
And I'm willing to bet good voiceover sound. You know what can work with different types of performances, with different types of stories. You've got a feel for that based on your own experience. And I think that's definitely going to make a big difference if people are looking for custom audio that has a tone or a feeling, or even something like you mentioned, like a British narrator to capture a certain type of humor.
Exactly. And a lot of it also comes through when we do the face-to-face chat like this or phone call. Mm-hmm. A lot of times just talking to somebody and getting to know their personality like we are right now.
Yeah.
There's not necessarily analytical, I guess you could call it analytical, just a gut feeling of, you know what, I think they would really like this voice. So oftentimes I'll also pick out two or three narrators that I know and get some samples from them and be like, hey, would you prefer one over the other of these voices, or do any of these sound good to you? Their style and, just general voice tone.
Yeah. If you're walking somebody through that phone interview or video interview to get a sense of what they're looking for, what are the types of questions that people can expect to be asked, or that you would find particularly helpful in terms of gathering information and understanding what it is that somebody's after?
So it kind of depends on the situation. For instance, one of our bigger ones are birthday celebrations. So I was working with somebody to learn about the birthday boy or girl. First of all, I'd start with biographical information, when and where were they born, who are their parents, who are their siblings, where did they grow up, where did they go to school, what's their career, do they have kids? Not necessarily in that order, but it's more conversational kind of flow. And then I also lean a lot into, in most situations, not just with the individuals, also with anniversaries and weddings, stories.
Yeah.
It's really like, what's the story that everybody tells at Thanksgiving every year? And you've heard it 100 times.
Nice.
And the funny thing about that is when, say you're getting it as a birthday gift for somebody else, the audiobook, it's really interesting, depending on who commissioned it. Say your mother commissioned it for you. It's really interesting hearing their perspective come through. Because it's, everybody sees things or remembers things slightly different. And I found that to be like, oh, really? I guess, that is how you would have seen that or understood that.
When you're getting perspectives from somebody who wants to give a gift, and let's use the example of like mother, daughter, just as an example, would you find that the reaction when you hear about it is kind of one of delight or surprise? Because not only have they heard about a really personalized reaction or memory, but they're getting that through a professional narrator. So it's kind of, I'm imagining, I'm kind of putting myself in the shoes of someone who's listening to an audio recording that they're not expecting, but there's all this personal information or context that people wouldn't expect, and it would just kind of be kind of delightful and surprising, and just a really one-of-a-kind experience to have that as a gift or as something that you can listen to with your family around you, with your friends around you. I know it's, in some cases, just having the other reactions of the other people in the room who would also remember that Thanksgiving story or that childhood anecdote. That in itself creates an experience too. So I can see how it's not just about the audio recording being played and then one person hearing it, the person who it's about, but the rest of the room and people reacting and so thinking about your idea of if you could videotape or record reactions, I think that would be a lot of fun. But I'm sure you've heard stories or just feedback from people who are exceptionally happy about this. Can you share a few examples of the types of responses or surprised reactions that you've heard about?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's funny, you said delight and surprise were the two terms you use. That's exactly what I aim for people to come away with. And the great thing is, they usually are not expecting to hear an audiobook about themselves. And that is truly one of the rewarding things. A few examples. One of the first audiobooks that I did that wasn't for friends or family was for a young man, commissioned one for his mom who, it was a combination. It was her birthday and she was retiring. I think it was her 60th birthday party. And she was very, very much a community lady. She was a leader in her workplace and in the community, at her church. I've never met her, but she sounds like a wonderful lady. And we produced the whole thing, and they played it at her, I want to say it was a surprise retirement party. I don't know if she knew it was, even if the party was happening, but I know that it was at an event center. And I believe his cousin was the DJ. And they had, congratulations for retiring, the whole normal experience you would have. And then he said, now if everybody would just take their seats, we have one more surprise. And they dimmed the lights and the DJ just played it. And I guess I haven't mentioned, I start the audiobooks with some mood music in the beginning. I have a few different options of that. I do too. And at first it comes in and everybody's just like, what is this? And then, which is, it's not a common thing people have heard before.
Sure.
And so it comes on and I try to start them like it's just kind of a generic production. You're not sure what to expect. Like it won't have any, this is the book about so-and-so. It's kind of like a prologue jumping into a story. And then I kind of try to build it so it slowly dawns on them like, wait a minute. that she said my name, and she knows, and they know when I was born and all this. And then, yeah, it usually just really, I try to capture the emotion of the surprise and the delight. Like you said, I'm going to have to steal that. I like that.
Welcome to it.
And just that one in particular, that first one, I got so much feedback. The DJ was asking, how'd you do this? This is such a cool idea. And, just random family members were emailing like, that was so cool. Thank you. We're going to remember that forever. And that's really rewarding. First of all, hearing that was just a really good example of what I try to bring out when I create these things. Another quick example is actually at my own wedding last summer. I created one for my wife and I. So we were going to have, a big wedding in June of 2020. So that didn't exactly work out as planned.
No, not the year to have a big wedding.
No. We did wind up getting our immediate families together and doing a small backyard ceremony. And we gathered the family there and we were eating food and we did the same thing. I just vividly remember having it play for a minute. A few people knew it was coming, but most people didn't. And I just remember both of my new sisters-in-law both just tearing up and just trying not to, and yeah, that was just a really good feeling. We've definitely gotten some tears out of some of these before. Tears of joy, of course.
Yes, of joy, of course. And
yes.
The audience won't know this, but I actually listened to the sample from your wedding, and you had a few spoof ads, which I think is unique as well. I haven't heard quite that type of audio recording before. Can you talk a little bit about that and how you might incorporate some of those into other recordings?
Absolutely. So that production that I created, I framed more as a podcast, kind of a satirical podcast, I guess you could say. Mm-hmm. So we did an intro, and then, we did two goofy kind of tongue-in-cheek advertisements, I believe. Okay, I hadn't listened to it in a while. I'm going to have to think now. I believe one of them was had something to do with my wife and I putting on a few extra comfort pounds since we had found each other and fallen in love.
And now you can just relax into it.
Yeah,
no worries.
exactly.
Yeah.
And, what was the second one? I can't remember. You've probably listened to it more recently than I have.
Oh.
But I do, that is a fun thing that we can also do if you want to. And now, today's production is brought to you by, anybody out there listening has heard plenty of podcast ads if they're listening to a podcast, I would assume.
Yeah.
And
so they're not expecting it to be a spoof, though, of course, because
yes, I created one once. Actually, this was also for my wife a long time ago when I was still kind of creating them. My wife loves beets, like the root vegetable beets. I don't really care for them. She loves them. She can't get enough of them. So I did a little fake advertisement. Today's podcast is brought to you by the American Beet Association. It's like, that's, no, not the cool new beat you heard, a beat from the ground. And, then at the end, I put a real quick disclaimer, like, please note, this is obviously not a real organization.
Yes.
None of these codes are actually real. Yeah. It's just a fun thing to put in. And another really beautiful thing about just doing the discovery calls with folks and getting them set up is, sometimes people have their own ideas or their own sense of humor that they would like to inject. So, if something comes up, I'll say, what if we did this? What if we did a little fake advertisement about that one little quirk or whatever that you like, and in that sense, I think there truly are like a really personalized kind of gift. We try to go to that level of customization.
With an event like Mother's Day, that's still a couple months away, Paul. Is that enough time for people to reach out to you and order some custom audio messaging or an audiobook for Mother's Day?
Yes, absolutely. So we try to work on a 7-day turnaround to create our standard product, the made-to-order audiobook. So,
wow, that's pretty impressive.
Thank you. So you will purchase, and then you'll be sent to a calendar where you can schedule a time for the interview. And then 7 days from that time, we'll have it scripted, produced, and ready to go. And absolutely, Mother's Day is a great opportunity, especially I know in our current world we're living in, a lot of people haven't been able to see their family, or their
Yeah.
moms in a long time, or they're separated by long distance and can't travel. I have a brother and sister-in-law in Australia who literally cannot fly back home
Wow,
until
that's
this whole thing
tough.
is, I know, yep. But I know that's a struggle with people. So, if your mom lives in another state or another country, it's a great way of really, showing them how you care and showing your happy and funny memories together. And it can be sent digitally anywhere. All you need is access to the internet. And yeah,
Yeah. And just to go back to the process for getting started, Paul mentioned you can reach out to him on his website. You can set up a time for him automatically through the calendar. And right now, we're actually promoting $30 off a made to order audio until May 15th. And all you need to do is go to the website and you're going to enter my name, Jana or Yana, into the checkout when you go to book your consultation. Is that right?
that is correct. Yeah. So
Awesome.
if anybody is interested, I know that it's a very unique product that a lot of people haven't heard of. So if anybody, out there is interested in doing like a personalized audiobook for a loved one for Mother's Day, say, and they just want to kind of talk and figure out how it actually works, you can head to my website, madetoorderaudio.com, and head to the contact page. And from there, you can set up a call with me, just a Zoom or a phone call, if anybody just wants to chat and learn how it works more. And then, if they want to move forward, yeah, just head to checkout, select one, and enter promo code JANNA, JANNA. I did spell it right.
You
Correct.
sure
Yes.
did.
All right. And yeah, you'll get $30 off. So hopefully that will help some people give some good presents this year for Mother's Day. Yeah.
Absolutely. And moving on to pricing, now a lot of people listening to this will understand that audiobook quality, it's tied to a high level of professionalism, and it's not the same, of course, as simply speaking into your iPhone and creating a quick voice memo. But tell me a little bit about the pricing just to help the audience understand that this is a special type of product, so the pricing corresponds to the level of production and professionalism, like you mentioned, the voice actors and the music that goes into this. So this is a really high quality level of production.
Absolutely. It is professional level. So the pricing right now is $249. And the product that you get is a 15 to 20 minute audiobook, audio production. So that involves our initial 30-minute to hour, sometimes on the long end, consultation, discovery call, where and then if you want to have family members join to be part of the process as well, that's also an option. So we go through that, and then we completely custom script the entire project. When that is done, we send it to I kind of touched on the selecting a narrator or working with the people to find a narrator they would like. Professional. Everybody I work with is a published audiobook narrator out in the world. They're professionals. And they will read the whole thing, and then we bring it all to the same studio quality standards set by Audible, iTunes, and Amazon. So it's not really loud and then really, really quiet whisper.
Yeah.
Sorry for your editing team there for doing that. But
Yeah, well, no, it's all good. And if anyone has questions about the technical aspects of the editing or the production quality, I'm sure, Paul, you're happy to answer them in a consultation. I think that's really outstanding here is that audio is a lot more, it's challenging to produce high quality audio. And I think that's surprising to some folks because if you've recorded a voice memo or you've recorded something just casually, you don't always realize how much work would go into taking that basic, simple recording to something that sounds like a professional level audiobook or podcast. So I think that's what really makes this stand out. And I have listened to some of the samples that you have. It's really beautiful quality. And I think you're going to post samples on your website, or there are some samples on there if people want to listen.
yeah,
Eventually.
I'm posting some up actually this week. I've been getting
Cool.
requests for that more and more, and I
Yeah.
figure I should get around to doing what people ask me.
That's great.
Yeah.
So if you think about future projects or types of audiobooks that you'd like to try, what would you like to try next? What would you like to edit or frame or script in terms of building out your experience as an audiobook producer?
So one thing, I don't know that it's necessarily what I would want to do next, but it's something that I've gotten the most feedback from people asking for. And that is something more along the lines of, if not a eulogy, a bereavement kind of end of
Like an
life
in memoriam.
celebration. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think I've just leaned away from that because, I want to be, light and, funny and hopeful. The more I think about it, I really can be doing something like that, honoring somebody's life. I have yet to do a project like that, but I think that is what I would like to work on going forward,
Yeah.
figuring out a good way to really capture somebody's life and everything
Yeah.
they accomplished and everything.
And people who have maybe documented letters or memoirs of their life, mementos, that would be such an engaging way to bring a family or a group together who are remembering the best aspects of that person. What about that person made them laugh? What about that person made them feel special? So I could absolutely see that use case or type of product being a popular choice. I'd love to hear it. If you ever get to creating that, please do post it on your website, or if you have a sample of that at some point. I think that would be really neat. Do you have any other plans for other types of audio production? So, for example, you mentioned specifically like the 15-minute length. Are you thinking of also offering something slightly shorter or something longer for a specific type of purpose?
So I do have some ideas. I have more ideas than I probably need to follow at any one time.
That's good. That's actually a good thing.
I have toyed with the idea of, so one is I've actually been in talks with a few poets that I've met through Instagram of all places.
Cool.
Yeah, like there's one gentleman who does personalized poems, and he will type it on a antique typewriter on this really cool kind of parchment paper and
way.
mail it to you like that. And I've been in talks with them with 2 or 3 different people of maybe offering that as also, in addition to that, like a narration, like a custom audio poem. That would be it would be a lower price point, and also I think just as, if not just as similar, just emotional impact you could get from that. I've also had an idea that I haven't really spent any time fleshing out, of creating a more of a templated story. So say a superhero story, where the whole story is basically already written. And all the personalized part would be, we would enter your name and like who your supervillain is that you fight against. Say it's
that'd be fun.
Say it's like your neighbor who looks at you funny in the morning. That's the supervillain. And then and there would just be a few points in there, and I could bring that down to a much lower price point because it would already be formatted and just a few. And I think that could also be a really fun thing to do. I've daydreamed about that one a lot. I haven't actually sat down to put pen to paper and get something done. But I think in the future it could be. I always go with that superhero one. Something along those lines though.
Yeah.
And
well, if
also
anyone's
make
listening, and they want you to try it, it sounds like you're game for that.
Yeah,
That would be
absolutely.
fun. Yeah.
And that's the other thing. I am open to work with people for whatever they're thinking. Creating these audiobooks, it's really fun working. I feel like I kind of hack into people's creativity sometimes. Just one quick aside real quick. I recently did one for a couple. So a cousin commissioned it for her cousin who was expecting a baby. And at the end I said, hey, are there any messages you'd like our narrator to put in there from specific people? So she got a few of them, like, oh, we love you. We wish you all the love in the world from grandma and all this. But there was this one cousin, and he wrote about a 2-page back and forth with the narrator that read by the narrator. It's kind of hard to explain, but it was hilarious. He goes, oh, yes, this is Cousin Dan speaking through a narrator. I doubt the narrator's voice is as smooth and buttery as mine, but hey, what can you do? Let me ask you this, narrator. And goes on and on and on. But I digress. I'm sorry. And it's just funny because it's the professional narrator reading all this.
Of course.
And then at the end, he goes, I'm sorry, narrator. I'll buy a beer. I'll have a beer on me. And then I as a little aside at the very end, I sent a note to my narrator. I said, hey, at the very end, just say, hey, Cousin Dan, make it a mojito. and put that into the end. So, we can do
Yeah.
cool, personalized details like in that, to, whatever people are thinking. That was a fun one that I just recently was thinking about.
Oh, that's a great example. And it just shows what audio potential has. I think we're so used to thinking about audio in a specific way, whether it's broadcasting or radio, podcasts, or specific audiobooks, but the technology and the talent is there, and Paul's here to make it happen. So I think we could definitely see some really fun projects come out of this. And I would love to follow up with you at some point and see what other types of projects you worked on, if you've experimented with other narrative forms or music in the background. I think it's got unlimited potential, and like you say, it's a digital format. You can send it anywhere. It doesn't really take up space. You can give it to almost anybody with an interest in listening. So thank you so much for coming on the podcast today, Paul. I really appreciate hearing all about made-to-order audio.
Thank you for having me, Jana. This was very fun. I had a great time talking to you. Hopefully, maybe we can talk again sometime.
That's all for this episode of Audiobook Reviews in 5. Thanks for listening. If you have not yet done so, please follow us on Facebook and subscribe to Audiobook Reviews in 5 on Anchor, Apple, Spotify, and many others. By subscribing, you help increase the profile of this podcast and chances of other listeners finding it. I look forward to checking in with you all again soon. Please stay safe and be well.